By the time this video drops, we're still going to be more than a month away from WrestleMania 41 in Las Vegas, which is crazy to think about as we are in mid-March practically at this point, but this is the time of year on the channel when I look back at classic WrestleManias over the decades. Now, subtle fact about me as a wrestling fan that still feels weird to admit, but of the first 10 WrestleManias, there are still 2 of them that in all the years I've been watching wrestling, I'd never watched all the way through. And I've only solved one of those for this week's review. It's crazy to think there's still this total blind spot for me in the early 90s, especially when it comes to WrestleManias. We're going to look back at WrestleMania 7 from March 24th, 1991 at the LA Coliseum. The Los Angeles Memorial Sports Arena in Los Angeles, California. This show was nominated by Evil Broseph, Scott Mealy, the Old School Video Game King, Jesse Langston, Jason Young, and Alex Firehart over at patreon.com/wrestlingwithregret. This is a very up and down WrestleMania. There are a lot of things that worked really well on this show, but a lot of things that didn't, in my opinion. And even though there are a lot of good things to be mined from this show, especially, with the power of hindsight, this is still a down time for the product. Like I said, a year before this, they were promoting, hey, WrestleMania 7 is going to be at the LA Coliseum. 100,000 fans are going to be there. It's going to be bigger than Mania 6 in Toronto. And there are a couple of different reasons/theories as to why this venue change happened. And honestly, it's the reason why so much about this show seems to change dramatically with those 6 weeks to go in the show. Obviously, if you look at the real world backdrop, the greater current events, what's going on here, Operation Desert Storm was a recent thing before this show happened. It was 2 days before the Royal Rumble when Operation Desert Storm kicked into high gear. That was the final phase of the Gulf War, and there was a lot of tension and unease here stateside about the fear of retaliation. And so there was a lot of nervousness about going to an outdoor or any kind of big gathering, a big sports gathering. And this is supposed to be up to 100,000 people in this big open-air stadium. They were thinking about canceling the Super Bowl around this time because of these fears. And so the WWF had to think about what to do in this case. They were going to be on the hook for all the security detail that would have had to go into securing the Coliseum. And it was so expensive, they decided to, at the last minute, change it to the LA Sports Arena, which is much smaller certainly, but it's also a closed dome. It's a roofed stadium. It's a lot easier to manage security in a space that small. There are also a lot of people who say the reason they downsized was, maybe the security reason, but also ticket sales weren't that great. There's different reports as to how many were sold. Dave Meltzer reported that there were no refunds issued when the venue change happened, leading us to believe that there wasn't a surplus. There weren't more tickets sold than was available. But Bruce Pritchard on his podcast has said that very thing, that, there were more tickets sold, and so there were a lot of things they had to do. So again, consider both sources, but there are basically opposing, thoughts behind the whole, they didn't sell well. And they probably didn't sell that great, considering, where the product was at this time. I think Hulkamania had truly peaked. The rock and wrestling era had subsided, and people were starting to, get a little old of that. The incorporation of the Iraq War into the storyline did turn fans off. And probably that fear of going out into a big venue like this, probably all these different factors leading to the venue change. And so, had they decided to run through with it, had there not been the escalation that was happening in the Gulf War, would they have sold out? Probably not in the Coliseum. It would not have looked great. So I think it was probably just a good choice for them to move to the smaller venue either way. It's definitely not a great look, and obviously it's a logistical nightmare. There's so many expenses you have to consider just to make that kind of move in marketing and, again, security detail and all the plans you've made. It definitely cost a lot, no doubt, for them to make those changes. And so there's probably a little bit of truth to the lack of ticket sales. But again, looking at the bigger picture, where the country was at that point, it was probably a smart choice for the WWF to move venues here. Ultimately, not that it mattered, because Desert Storm would be over within a couple of weeks after it started. So by March, when this show is happening, it's not so much like extra boost of motivation for America and the troops, so much as kind of like a slightly dated victory lap. And oh yeah, did I mention the World Bodybuilding Federation had just kicked off around the same time? So again, think historically about when Vince McMahon takes his eye off the ball and dedicates his time to something other than his primary business in the WWF, like the WBF or the XFL, for instance. Things tend to fall by the wayside when his eye is off the ball. And I think some of that is shown, again, in the product overall. That's making it suffer numbers-wise. You have over 16,000 folks in the arena here, 400,000 pay-per-view buys broadcast to the Armed Forces Network as well for extra America flavor. This is down considerably from 560,000 the previous year. I love the cold open here. They add the stars in Sergeant Slaughter's shades. Then he growls. Obviously, it's a very America-fied aesthetic for this one. The theme is Stars and Stripes Forever. We get the Stars and Stripes all over the arena, the red, white, and blue logo, and the ropes. The main event, of course, is all about American pride, so it really makes sense that they did this. Again, it was a very late change in the game, and again, it did seem kind of excessive or seemed unnecessary after the war had subsided, but you still have to admire the effort and the work they went into, again, pivoting and changing all that with just so little time left. The show kicks off with Willie Nelson singing America the Beautiful. Let's ask Willie what he thinks about the XWF. Gorilla Monsoon welcomes the fans and promises this to be the greatest WrestleMania of all time, and he makes good on that by introducing his guest on color commentary and Willie's smoking buddy, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, dressed up as Uncle Sam. He nods vigorously as Gorilla lays out some of the biggest matches, all fucking 14 of them tonight. Hacksaw is picking Warrior to beat Savage and for the Hulkster to bring the world title back to the good old US of A. So remember my review of SummerSlam 1990 when I talked about how promo heavy that show was? Yeah, we're still very much in that era of, WWF pay-per-views where a lot of promos, we don't have video packages at this time really, so it's more about the backstage promos. And we begin with Sean Mooney backstage with the Midnight Rockers, Sean and Marty. They're going against Haku and the Barbarian. Marty says that the Rockers have been defying odds since the very beginning. Mooney asks, what do you think about the Heenan family? And they're, real scared. Shawn Michaels with a great line saying, hey, that their opponents are the biggest and the baddest, but what will that make the Rockers if they beat them tonight? We go to that opening match now as the Rockers take on the Barbarian and Haku, better known here as the Man Called Ming. Bobby Heenan is at ringside for Barb and Hack here. We'll hear his voice a lot more on this show. A lot of weasel chants as this match goes on. Haku catching Shawn Michaels. The story early on is just how big and slow and strong Haku and the Barbarian are and how fast the Rockers are with their moves. I love how Jim Duggan calls them Fancy Dan flying moves. I gotta start using that phrase, Fancy Dan. The Rockers with some double teamery. They both get laid out by the Barbarian, but these no-selling high spot artists hit a double super kick. Marty's able to outmaneuver Barbarian for a bit, but Barb catches him for a powerbomb, but Shawn with the assist into the Hurricane Rana. With the referee's back turned, we get a double team neck drop onto the top rope. Marty's in a bad way. Jim Duggan seems to be totally out of breath at this point in the match doing commentary, because at the beginning when he's first down there, he's talking a mile a minute, tough guy, and all this stuff, and he's got all the lines and all the phrases, and then more than a minute and a half, and he's just gassed and doesn't know what to say. Barry with the bear hug as Shawn gets the crowd fired up. Marty gets a moment of hope, but he's caught in midair and slammed by the Barbarian. Barb goes for a diving headbutt, but Marty gets out of the way. Hot tag to Shawn and Haku. Shawn goes on a big run. All four men are in the ring for a second. Some blatant double teaming on display here. We get the missile dropkick by Marty, the top rope splash by Shawn on Haku, the cover and the win for the Rockers. I give it 3 stars out of 5. I like this match a lot. I think that, when done well, a big versus little match can be so much fun. And I think that, everyone understood and played their roles really well here. Shawn and Marty are great, come from behind, fiery baby faces. And Haku and Barbarian, again, played their roles really well as the imposing brutes here. So yeah, I think this is a really great way to open the show. Jim Duggan just shouting over Monsoon as he tosses to Mean Gene Okerlund in the promo zone with our guest hosts for the evening, Regis Philbin, Marla Maples, and Alex Trebek. It's so funny to look back at, what the caliber of celebrity was like in Manias like this, or what kind of stars did they get. And you see just kind of the people they were able to grab here. And you've got talk show host, game show host, you've got model, you're gonna have some other kind of actors later on in the show as well who are okay, I guess they're getting work. And you kind of look at that compared to the more modern day WWE and the talent they're able to get, and it's like, you know, hip-hop megastars and these hugely popular video game streamers and, you know, sports analysts that are actually athletic and stuff like that. It's just so funny, the different kind of celebrities that were around back then for when you had celebrity involvement at Manias. Regis says he's had Hulkamania himself. He's had Macho Man. Yeah, that famous tagline of his. And he says he had a great time talking to all the guys, but that earthquake scares him. Marla Maples, you have the unenviable task of being a locker room reporter. Uh-oh, get out of there, Marla. But she says she's excited, but no matter what, she'll call him just the way she sees him. And this part made me laugh so much because Gene gives Alex Trebek this big, flowery opening. Oh, my good, dear personal friend, Alex Trebek. And Trebek just goes, nice to see you, Jim. And then we get a little Abbott and Costello routine between the two of them, and then we find out Duggan is out and Bobby Heenan's in on commentary for our next matchup as Dino Bravo taking on the Texas Tornado Kerry Von Erich in his one and only Mania appearance. Bravo jumps him mid-entrance and all that fringe goes flying. Bravo blocks the claw attempt and hits a reverse atomic drop, I think. Kerry ducks too, but he walks into a side slam. This match is kind of hard to watch. Von Erich is bumping very strangely to me. Bravo comes off the second rope with a flying nothing, but Tornado puts on the Iron Claw, sets him up for the spinning Tornado, and Von Erich wins. I'm going to give it 1 star out of 5. This is one of the many matches on this card that did not need to be on a WrestleMania event. And I understand they wanted to get as many guys booked as they could, so you have a lot of these extra matches which really don't go very long. You know, it's like you're lucky to get a minute out of some of these matches. And this one in particular was a bit ugly. They did not make the most of their time. But besides that, you know, it's just, again, it's a match to get some people on the card. And I'm sure, you know, with a home video release, you could easily cut this and maybe 4 other matches and you'd probably improve the experience. Mooney is backstage with the Warlord and his manager Slick. The Slickster says it takes more than one dog to bring the Warlord down, and Davey Boy is about to be fixed. And Warlord says no wrestler will escape his full Nelson. Evil laughter. Elsewhere, Mean Gene's with the British Bulldog hanging out with his mascot, Winston. Is this the day for the British Bulldog? Bulldog says yes. Yes, it is. There's no one he can't power slam, and Winston says there's no bull in this Bulldog. A beefy grudge match up next as the British Bulldog takes on the Warlord. The build for this match has been pretty funny because throughout programming you'll see these cut-ins with this woman playing the Queen of England, and she does these statements where she's holding the corgi or whatever, and she's very proper, and she's like, I don't like the British Bulldog, and she's very much like, I don't want the Bulldog to win this matchup, and like, how could the Queen feel this way about her own countrymen? And we find out, oh, she's just an actress that Bobby Heenan has paid off to show up and make these disparaging comments. Like, what a hater the Brain is. They've got Winston on the corner in the manager's position. This match is just big, meaty men bumping meat. It takes 4 tackles for Warlord to go down. Bulldog hitting a crucifix, but Warlord just slams him down. Davey Boy fighting out of a bear hug, but is dropped over the top rope. Bulldog starts to fight back with punches. Warlord just picks him up and hucks him down. I love this guy. The Bulldog makes his comeback, hits a ridiculous standing drop kick. He goes up to the second rope. He slips, still hits a punch though. The Warlord still able to power out. We get some nice pinfall combos. Lord gets the full Nelson on, but can't lock the fingies. The Bulldog powers out. He gets Warlord up on his shoulders for the first time all match, hits the running power slam, and the win. I give it 3 stars out of 5. I was like, let's go, you know, big man matchup. These guys definitely didn't take it easy on each other. This was an unexpected delight. This was just one where, yeah, man, these big dudes just beating the crap out of each other and making it look good and entertaining me all the while. I was here for it. MGO is backstage with the Nasty Boys and Jimmy Hart. Hey, baby, they're mean, they're nasty, they're the future tag team champs, baby, ha ha ha. Sags and Knobs say they're going after the Foundation, and that will send the whole building coming down. Then they take turns blowing their nose into Gene's pocket square. Aw. Then Mooney is with the tag team champs, Bret Hart and Jimmy Jam Neidhart. Neidhart screams that if you want to chip at the Foundation, you have to start at the bottom, and that's where the Nasty Boys are. Then Bret chimes in saying that the Nasty Boys are going to stay at the bottom, and they're not nasty, they're scum. That matchup up next for the WWF Tag Team titles as the Hart Foundation defend against the Nasty Boys. A few weeks ago on Primetime Wrestling, Knobs and Sags won a Tag Team Battle Royal to earn the #1 contendership for this match at WrestleMania. And, everyone and their mom thought it was going to be the Legion of Doom winning this one, but Power and Glory ended up costing them the match, allowing the Nasties to get the win. More on those other teams later. Also, Jimmy Hart is the former manager of Bret and Jim, so we got a lot of history in this matchup. We see Macaulay Culkin sitting at ringside, and they say he doesn't want to be home alone with the Nasty Boys. No, he does not. Bret is a one-man army early on. We get the face-off with Neidhart and Knobs. Anvil just propels Knobs out of the ring. A couple minutes later, Brian with a cheap shot from behind. That allows Jerry to take over on Bret. He gets worked over a good long time. Bret works his way out of a camel clutch, hits that neck breaker to finally get some space. Nasty Knobs with a run-in to keep the tag from happening. And then as that's happening, Monsoon, and you can tell when Monsoon is speaking disingenuous or being smart ass or sarcastic, you can hear that in his voice. Not so in this, where he seems to be speaking with the utmost sincerity about how tremendous a job the referee is doing keeping order in this. A double team attempt goes awry, the fans are on their feet, but the referee misses the tag. A megaphone shot goes awry. Bret makes the tag, Anvil with a hell of a hot tag streak. A brilliant moment, we get this collision in the ring with the Nasties after a chase around the ring. What an awesome spot this was. The heart attack hits, they have the match won, but the referee is distracted once again as Sags slams the megaphone down onto the anvil. The crawl over, the count, the win, new tag team champs. I give it 4 stars out of 5. This was a very good matchup. Honestly, every time I see the Nasty Boys during this time period, I find myself being very pleasantly surprised just how good they really are, and how the image that they portray really kind of hides the goodness that is there in their working ability. Like that, again, that sequence they did just before the heart attack and the false finish was so well done. I popped huge for that. It's a really great matchup here, and this would be the final outing, the last hurrah for the Hart Foundation as a tag team. They tried splitting them up a few years before that. Didn't quite work. They put them back together, made him babyface, and now, again, they feel that Bret is ready to go on that singles run. So soon after this, he's going on his singles quest, and the rest for Bret is history. Up next, for the first time ever in WWF history, it's a blindfold match as Rick the Model Martel takes on Jacob the Snake-Up Roberts. Way back in October on the Brother Love show, Model sprayed Jake right in the eyes with that arrogance perfume. Was he the first person to actually take that in the face this whole time? Because I can't imagine he would do that regularly and Jake is the only one to suffer adverse effects from that. So he had to have been the first one to actually get hit good in the eye with it. So he is blinded, and then they show the next week he's at the doctor's office and they're like, we still have to wait another week to find out the damage to your eyes. I'm like, oh, that's convenient when you're building a weekly program. So he's blind for months at this point. He shows up next time on the Brother Love show wearing the sunglasses. He's fumbling around trying to find stuff. He ends up dropping Brother Love with a DDT, mistaking him for Martel. You see the contacts in his eyes and everything. Like, damn, that cologne needs to be tested if that's what it's doing to people's eyes. Like, I was 5 years old at the time this angle was happening. If I was watching at this time, this might have scarred me for life, I'm not gonna lie. So after some more blind escapades where he accidentally jumps Tito Santana, Jake finally regains his sight, and we have this blindfolded match announced after Martel had already signed the contract because he couldn't read the fine print. And now Jake's at an advantage, you see, because him having been blind recently, he feels the most at home because he had the recent blindness, and going back into it is just A-okay for him, and Martel will totally be out of his element. Very well done angle. This is around the time when the WWF is getting edgier. Stories like this, it's straight from, Bill Watts, Mid-South, great stuff. And I think Jake is the perfect kind of wrestler to generate that kind of sympathy from the fans, leading to the most cathartic revenge possible. And that's what we get here. The blindfolds are put on. They're just big black bags over their heads that are gimmicked so that they can actually see out them and just kind of pretend as the match is going on here. The bell rings and they wander around. Great crowd work in this match because Jake will just kind of point any direction and he waits for the fan response to see when he's getting hot or cold. That was great stuff. The crowd is just totally fixated on this matchup because they're looking to see what either of these guys will do. And there is some great blind wrestler work here in this matchup. The pointing around is great, more wandering. Jake finally grabs an ankle and Martel escapes, but he falls backward and almost gets pinned, shoots off the ropes. Jake just sidesteps. Brilliant. We get some more sonar, more wandering. Jake's like pounding on the mat and like trying to clap his hands to use echolalia and shit. Martel body slams Jake, goes for a blind elbow drop, but is way off. This is amazing stuff. Heenan has apparently gone deaf from all the crowd reactions, and they are super loud here in this matchup. Martel mistakenly grabs the referee in the corner. I don't know why the ref didn't take all that time he had earlier just to get out of their way. Martel crawls towards the snake sack and recoils in fear, even more pointing. Jacob the Point-Up Roberts. Jake knocked onto the floor. Martel goes out there as well and grabs a chair. The way he's swinging around the chair and is missing just kind of reminds me of whenever I would play like a wrestling game and grab a weapon, and I'm like swinging and I'm trying to get him, but he's just too far away, just a couple of pixels too far away to hit, but that guy's able to hit me with like a punch and I'm fucked. Back in the ring they go. Martel gets the Boston Crab locked in, but Jake reverses the pressure. Jake catching Martel and drops the DDT. It takes all day to find him, but he makes the cover and gets the win. Robert stomps on the bottle of arrogance to break it up. Then Jacob grabs his snake up and drapes it over Model's body. I give it 3 stars out of 5. This was a very entertaining gimmick match. A lot of folks will look at this match and kind of crap on it, but I think they're missing the forest for the trees. Because this is, for all intents and purposes, it's a comedy match, but there's such a brilliant storyline being told in this one because you've got all the build going in about Jake having been blinded, and this seems like a natural conclusion. The fact that these guys have different strategies as to how to locate each other, and they both succeed and fail throughout the match. And so it's just this really great give and take, really great back and forth that takes advantage of the handicap and tells it in a really, entertaining and engaging way. The fans were totally just like into this 100% of the time. It was very good stuff. And of course, I think, again, had that cathartic ending of the good guy getting his revenge at the end. I think the only other time, for the next time we would see a blindfold match in WWE would be years later. I want to say it's like 2003 or 2004 when it's like Triple H versus D'Lo Brown on Raw. Marla Maples is backstage with the new tag champs, the Nasty Boys. Just lots of screaming. You can't hear anything here. Earthquake walks in and Maples says, "Here comes the gorilla." More screaming. Back to you. Neat. Well, it wasn't too long before this event where The Undertaker famously switched managers. It was around Royal Rumble time where he went from being managed by Brother Love to Paul Bearer. And of course, that is an iconic manager to work with The Undertaker, and they worked well together for a good long while. And they have their first WrestleMania moment together when The Undertaker battles Jiminy Snuka. Snuka, by the way, this is his last WrestleMania match until the 3-on-1 handicap match he has with Chris Jericho at Mania 25. The bell rings and The Undertaker is just standing perfectly still and commentary saying, "Look at this man. Look at that man." They come to blows right away. Taker hits that big leaping lariat off the ropes. Monsoon saying, "Look at the size of that ham hock." Referee has to stop his 5 count in the rope so Taker can hit his big suplex. Snuka tries coming back, goes for a big leaping attack, but gets nothing but ropes and falls to the outside. Superfly with a springboard attempt, but Taker catches him. Can't quite make the complete transition, so he puts him down, picks him up again for the tombstone, the drop, and the cover for the win. I'll give it 1 star out of 5. I mean, it's a very historically significant match. Obviously, it's the beginning of what would come to be known as the streak, where Taker would eventually go on to win 20 more matches at WrestleMania before finally getting beaten by Brock Lesnar. Obviously, they had no plan going into this was going to happen with The Undertaker. It's just very interesting coincidence that he would be unbeaten by the time the streak became a thing. So yeah, not the prettiest match in the world. This is one of those matches where if it didn't turn into something like huge like the streak, then this could ultimately be forgotten. It's definitely not one of the stronger Taker WrestleMania matches, but again, very historically significant. And speaking of significant, it's a career-ending match next as the Macho King Randy Savage takes on the Ultimate Warrior. So Macho King has spent a long time chasing the Warrior, demanding a WWF title shot, and then finally at the Royal Rumble, Macho and Queen Sherri work together to attack the Warrior during his title defense against Sergeant Slaughter. Savage attacks him at the entranceway, then dinks him real good with the scepter and helping Slaughter to win the belt. And now, for the first time ever evidently, we have a career-ending match in the WWF. And as the intros begin, we actually see Miss Elizabeth sitting in the stands. The first time we'd seen her on TV since August. Savage with a classic look. The colors, the pattern, great stuff. And hey, Sherry looks great too. Warrior's also decked out. He's got dueling knee pads, one with his face on it, one with Savage's. And on the back of his trunks it says, "It means so much more than this being the WWF Championship." The Warrior is uncharacteristically slow coming to the ring because this is, after all, a serious affair. Savage starts out with some dirty shots, but Warrior's too quick and too strong. There's a big atomic drop as you hear Sherry go.
Look at this atomic drop coming up.
She also bumps when she tries to enter the ring here. Savage goes for a dive, but Warrior catches him, puts him down, and slaps him. The disrespect. Warrior with a lot of stomps in the corner. Referee clearly counting to 5, but doing nothing. They're letting a lot go here. Savage falls to the outside. Sherry with some cheap shots, and that allows Savage to keep control. Warrior hits those ropes an awful lot of times, but Savage avoids the splash. More fighting back and forth. A double clothesline leads to a double down. It's a great match so far. They're giving each other a whole lot here. The flying knee leads to a referee bump. Sherry goes up top. A flying shoe attack, but she dinks the Macho King instead. Savage fights back, hits one flying elbow drop, then another one, then another one, then another one, then another one. The cover, the kick out at 2 after 5 elbow drops. What a wild ass moment that was. Had anyone been hit with 5 finishers in one sitting and still kicked out? I mean, that's pretty audacious. Even John Cena would have balked at that, looking at that finish there. But, I mean, it's a moment because Warrior, it just shows he will not be denied. And he gets up, he's hopping around, he hits 3 clotheslines, the press slam, and the splash. Savage kicks out of the finish as well. Warrior looks at his hands for a good while until Randy decks him off the apron. Sherry holds Warrior over the barricade while Savage jumps off the tippy top, but Warrior escapes. Savage eats the barricade. A few shoulder tackles by the Warrior, big bumps by Savage, a foot on the chest pin, and that's how the match ends. Wow, that's a statement. After the match, an angry Sherry begins to kick at Savage while he's down. That finally compels Miss Elizabeth to jump the barricade and attack her. Security apparently totally cool with this. So Liz is crying as we see them sharing a ring for the first time in forever, and Monsoon yells, "She's loved him from the beginning, Brain!" They hug and they get a big ovation from the crowd, and people in the audience are crying. What a moment. What a Wrestlemania moment, I dare say. I give it 4.5 stars out of 5. This is a brilliant match. I mean, this is probably Warrior's best match he ever had, even better than the one with Hogan the year before. It could be kind of close depending on your perspective, but I think it's a great story here. And again, the way the intensity with which Savage attacks and the back and forth, the amount that each man sells for each other. Because Warrior's one of those guys who has like the shorter matches and he just does the Hulk up and he's over essentially, and that's it. But this one actually had some depth and some kind of ebbs and flows to it. It was really well done. And, Savage is the loser here. He loses his career. Lol, that's not going to last very long, but he definitely comes off like a winner in the end, reuniting with Miss Elizabeth, getting that big moment. The crowd is bawling, seeing this. It's a beautiful moment here. So there is hope yet for Savage coming out like a big winner here. He would eventually get back to wrestling. It wouldn't take that long for the career-ending match to kind of be nullified, but this will lead to the big in-ring wedding later in the year to main event SummerSlam. Also, Jesus, how is there still so much show left? We have just now like halfway through this show and we've done like 7 matches already. And speaking of things to cut from the show, Mean Gene's like, hey, who wants some current events? Let's talk about instant replay in sports. Why? Vince McMahon is hosting a roundtable discussion here. He says instant replay is back in the NFL. Should the WWF follow suit? Could instant replay have prevented the Warrior from losing his title or literally any other injustice that's happened in the wrestling world before or since? So to talk about it, we have New York Yankees owner George Steinbrenner and NFL analyst Paul McGuire to talk about it. Steinbrenner and Jack Tunney have talked about it for a while, and George says he's for the replay, but hates how long the officials take. If it takes more than 60 seconds, the referee should be fired. Vince is appalled at the idea of firing people, apparently.
What do you mean, fire him? Like, from his job?
Maguire thinks that wrestlers and players alike should work hurt. Not sure what that's got to do with instant replay, but Steinbrenner butts in and says, "You weren't even a real NFL player. You were a punter." Ooh, no one tell that to Pat McAfee. Maguire calls Steinbrenner a butthead. Maguire denies it, so let's go to the replay with our bushwhacker referees. And a reverse angle shows that Paul clearly said it, but after further review, the play is inconclusive. Waka waka, and that's the end of the segment. Holy fuck. This is what I'm talking about. It's a very up and down WrestleMania. You have this brilliant match with Savage and Warrior. Oh my God, the tag title match with the Nasties and the Hart Foundation. Let's get this thing to take a shit all over it. Oh, and by the way, now is intermission, according to the pay-per-view broadcast. Now you can get up and stretch your legs and have a smoke. Back we go. Monsoon and Heenan with the stand-up at ringside. They're talking about the Intercontinental title match coming up, along with the World title match. We go backstage with Regis Philbin interviewing The Undertaker. Isn't this great? What a great day to be alive, Regis says, as Taker takes some measurements. Let's see what Alex Trebek is doing. He interviews Mr. Fuji and Demolition, Smash and Crush. Trebek brings up what it's like to be on Jeopardy, and he knows what it takes to win. Could that apply to wrestling? And honestly, Alex, I don't think I have the question to that answer, but Crush chimes in saying the only person with all the answers is Master Fuji. Back to Reg, Philbin interviewing Tenryu and Kitao. Anything you want to say at all? Speak any English? Toyota? Isuzu? Regis pinches their cheeks. Wow, this is something. Back to Alex alongside Jacob the Snake Up. Trebek wants no part of this interview. He's scared of snakes, proper spooked when Damien comes out. And then Jake goes, "Well, Damien, I guess you have to settle for the home edition of Jeopardy." That was actually kind of a funny bit. Well, after that inspired bit of content, who's ready for the wrestling to resume? Well, after this next match, I'm certainly not, as Demolition taking on Koji Kitao and Genichiro Tenryu in tag team action. Look how far Demolition have fallen from just 1 year ago. Axe is out of the picture. Demolition are heels again. They have shitty new music not performed by Rick Derringer, and they're going against these guys from Japan as part of a ongoing partnership with Tenryu's organization, SWS. And by the way, these guys from Japan have not had one iota of television time. A lot of empty seats for this matchup here. It's definitely the come down after intermission. Fuji whacks Kitao with the cane, and Demolition are on the attack. And Monsoon going, "What great international flavor we have for this WrestleMania." Yeah, the Raw America show with the international flavor. Smash and Crush are working over Kitao, who really doesn't do much of anything, certainly isn't selling all that much, until he comes running out of the corner with a clothesline. We get the hot tag to Tenryu, who's all over both members of Demolition. He misses a trust fall elbow drop. Demolition go for their double team finisher, but Kitao makes the save. Tenryu hits a powerbomb on Crush to win. I give it a half star out of 5. This match sucked, and I don't know if it was a case of no selling or no listening, because there was a lot of whatever it was going on in this very short, very disappointing match. Like, no one looked good at the end of this. But like I said, this match was to further the partnership between the WWF and Tenryu's operation, SWS. This would lead to a super show with the two organizations in Japan. And as far as Koji Kitao goes, in that super show, he tried to shoot on Earthquake, and then when that didn't really work out for him, he went on the live mic and said, "Wrestling's fake, everyone." Like, wow, what a way to go out for your career. Okerlund's backstage with the big boss man. He says he will be the Intercontinental Champion, but more importantly, "You hurt my mama's feelings, and that means you hurt my feelings." He says he's mowed down all of Bobby Heenan's family members. There's one left standing, and he will prove that crime doesn't pay. And wait a minute, since when did insults become a crime? Sean Mooney backstage with Bobby Heenan and Mr. Perfect. Heenan putting over the LAPD and their courageous assault of Rodney King, and he says that their brand of justice will be beating up that Barney Fife wannabe, the Boss Man. And we go to that match now for the Intercontinental Championship as Mr. Perfect defends against BBM. Lord Alfred Hayes is on commentary for this one. And the big build for this is that Boss Man has been going after the Heenan family. It was originally a feud with he and Rick Rude, but then Rude, when he left the company, they said, they fired him because he was making all of these disparaging comments toward the Boss Man's mother, and so he was kind of let go or gone from the company for disciplinary reasons. But wait a minute, like, Bobby Heenan's still doing it, and so's Mr. Perfect. Like, where's their punishment from the company? Perfect throws the towel at Boss Man, who catches it, wipes his ass with it, then throws it back at Perfect's face. Then we get spit. a spit back. Oh, but the slap in the face is a step too far. Bossman slaps him back. Perfect takes an all-time bump for it. This opening sequence is just so good. Perfect bumping his ass off for the Bossman. Then Bossman takes off his belt and just starts whipping Perfect with it. I'm pretty sure that's illegal. I mean, we've seen Hulk Hogan do it with the weight belt and whatnot over the years, but I feel like that's a rule break, isn't it? That's more of a crime than insulting someone's mother. But then Perfect gets the belt himself and whips Bossman with it, so he doesn't get DQ'd either, so fair's fair. Perfect has Bossman in the abdominal stretch for a good while, tries the Perfect Plex, but Bossman blocks it, hits a small package and a kick out, then Perfect with a standing blockbuster type move on a kneeling Bossman, bending backwards. Ouch. One of my favorite parts of this matchup here is just, I don't know why I heard it this way, but hearing Lord Alfred Hayes talk about Mr. Perfect's arsenal, he sounded like he was talking about his asshole.
His arsenal, his arsenal, his arsenal.
Perfect goes for the flying nothing, Bossman putting the boot up and mounts his big comeback. We get the ring post-itis. Bossman with his little combo in the corner. Then on the outside, Perfect checks Bossman and he explodes into the stairs. That was a crazy collision. Bobby Heenan getting some kicks in. Then suddenly Andre the Giant appears. Who can forget his big breakup with he and Heenan last year at WrestleMania? Bobby is scared shitless as Andre grabs the Intercontinental title. They get a shot of the mighty back of Andre holding the belt as they totally miss Bossman taking a header into the exposed turnbuckle. Andre decks Perfect with the belt. Both men are laid out. The Bossman sits up and goes for the cover. Perfect kicks out. Now the rest of the Heenan family runs in and the referee calls a DQ. Bossman wins the match but not the championship. Andre fights off Perfect and Haku and Barb. He's barely able to hold himself up as Monsoon says, "Look at the awesome powerhouse Andre." Andre giving Bossman this big endorsement on the aisle, some words of encouragement. Very cool moment here. I'm going to give it 3 stars out of 5, except for the disappointing DQ finish. I actually really liked the work between Bossman and Perfect here. I thought they had great chemistry. I think both men worked really well together. And seeing Andre coming out near the end of the match was a really nice visual. You know, tough to see him looking in the shape that he was in. Like he was barely able to stand on his own 2 feet without supporting himself on like the ring rope or the apron for a lot of that time. So you could tell like he was not in a good way here. But again, the presence of Andre, who is so synonymous with a lot of those first WrestleManias, to give the big endorsement to the Bossman and everything, kind of a passing of the torch or whatever, that was a really neat moment and certainly helped add, kind of take the sting off of the DQ finish. But yeah, it's a really strong match for the most part. Let's meet some more celebrities. Mean Gene in the crowd with future WWE Hall of Famer Donald Trump. He loves it. What a show. He's here with the group. They love it. And here's Chuck Norris with some words. Norris name-dropping Antonino Rocca. Henry Winkler's glad that the Ultimate Warrior got his ultimate win, and Gene's just like, terrific. Here's the Incredible Hulk, Lou Ferrigno. He says it's better than the Olympics, the circus, everything. What a rogues gallery this group is. And then as the next match begins, like Bobby Heenan with an all-time really cruel line about someone's speech impediment, but it was just so damn funny the way he said it. I had to stop tape for like 3 minutes to get my giggles out, where he says, Lou Ferrigno was talking like he had 15 pounds of crackers in his mouth. But up next, it's Earthquake taking on former Hart family member Greg the Hammer Valentine. Greg recently turned babyface and rejected that no good Nick Jimmy Hart, and wow, there is nothing more boring and uninteresting than face Greg Valentine. Like, what are we doing here? Earthquake with the power early on, big ol' slam on the hammer. Greg starts coming back with some big elbow strikes, blow after blow, can't take the big man down. Finally, a second rope elbow timbers him. Valentine even goes to the figure 4, but Hart's up on the apron with a distraction. Quake with the big blow, followed by the big sit for the big win. He wants to go for another one, but Valentine bails before it's too late. I give it 1.5 stars out of 5. This was a brutally short contest, but they really went hard at it here. It told a really fun story in a short amount of time. But yeah, if it actually got some more time and they actually had time to do more things, you know, maybe we'd have a higher rating on our hands. Sean Mooney backstage with the Legion of Doom. Is it a night of reckoning for Power and Glory? Animal says that Power and Glory screwed them out of winning that tag team battle royal. They should be the champions right now. They're gonna whomp these guys. The Nasty Boys are next. Hawk, what do you gotta say? Power and Glory? Soon you'll be sour and gory. Ooh, that's cold. old. So no intro for Paul Roma or Hercules as the LOD make their way to the ring. The baddies with the early jump on Animal and Hawk, but Hawk fires back with a double clothesline. Animal catches Roma in midair with a power slam. The Doomsday Device on Paul. Hercules doesn't do shit to save him as the LOD get the cover and the win. Well, that was something. Let's give it 0 stars. Up next, big-time grudge match here, years in the making, as the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase takes on his former manservant Virgil. Back at the Royal Rumble, DiBiase and Virgil beat the Rhodeses in that tag team matchup, but in the end, Virgil finally stood up for himself and clocked DiBiase with the $1 Million title. What a huge pop for him when he did that too. Now Roddy Piper, who has been on commentary for a while, he's training him, psyching him up, helping him outsmart Ted for weeks. Virgil actually picks up an upset win against Haku, and he also is able to distract DiBiase so badly one week he gets his first ever loss on WWF TV via countout against a jobber. They do a really good job making Virgil into this hero character and a really true blue babyface with an axe to grind. You know, Piper's trying to psych him up saying, "How do you spell man?" and Virgil spells Virgil, and it's really good stuff. And also this is the stuff that leads to that moment, you know, when Piper is first back in WCW and he's got the feud with Hollywood Hogan. He's face to face with Virgil saying, "I taught you how to fight." It's all reference to this. But you know, it's a great storyline in theory, but then the bell has to ring and the match actually has to happen. Piper, who is nursing a knee injury during this time, he makes his way out on a crutch. They're playing his music a long damn time before Piper calls for Virgil. He gets no music, but damn, what a pop for him. What a chant. I mean, Virgil is over as hell here, truly. Then the bell rings. He lights Ted up with some punches. Then he does it again. Then he does it again. He takes a clothesline, but then lays out Ted again with some more punches. Even does a wrestling takedown. They're fighting on the outside. DiBiase shoves an injured Piper to the ground, but Hot Rod responds by using his crutch to pull the top rope down, sending Ted flying out of the ring. Ted beats up Roddy on the outside, totally ignoring the count again. Virgil wins by countout for his one and only WrestleMania match. But he doesn't celebrate for long as Ted beats him up and slaps on the $1 Million Dream. Piper now enters the ring, clocking Ted with the crutch, but in comes sensational Sherry, Queen no more. She is now joined up with the $1 Million Man. They're both assaulting Piper and attacking the leg. Finally, Virgil gets back up, chases the baddies away. Then Virgil grabs the mic and says, "Piper, just like you told me, get up." So now Virgil's G'ing up Roddy and the fans are cheering him on. And wow, Roddy, the real hero of this storyline, is able to stand as he embraces Virgil. Wowzers. The match itself gets a half star out of 5, but I think the moment overall, again, the way Virgil came out there and the fan support behind him was really great stuff. They did a good job building Virgil up here, but again, you gotta actually deliver in the ring. And I don't know how Virgil stayed employed for as long as he did in wrestling when he moved like that and he wrestled like that. I don't quite understand that. And I did a whole video about this many years ago, God rest his soul. This booking is at once cool and infuriating. Because again, the way they are building up Virgil is really well done, but this match they're doing everything they can to hide his weaknesses. And those weaknesses still come out pretty strong by the end of this matchup here. And it's totally a transitionary feud. Virgil is the least important person in this storyline by the end of the match, because it's all about building up Piper and DiBiase. And Virgil's helping Piper back up. And it's not about Virgil at all anymore. So, we'll see how his career pans out after this. But Roddy's the real hero of this picture. Sean Mooney backstage with the WWF champ Sergeant Slaughter and his manager General Adnan. Let's take a look at all the bad things he's done as of late. He set a Hulk Hogan shirt on fire. He set a Hulk poster on fire. Why, that's just as bad as setting Old Glory on fire. And they show what happened on the main event when Slaughter beat up Hogan with a chair. Then we get an edit and Slaughter goes, "Ha ha ha ha." Slaughter reveals his own rules for this matchup where he says, "Hogan, I could get myself disqualified, or I could get myself counted out. I don't have to beat you, but you have to beat me. These are the rules of every championship match. match, but these are my rules. What do you think of that, Hogan? Wouldn't that suck? Ha 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 ha. Up next, Mountie taking on Tito Santana, who holds the distinction along with very few others of being there for the first 7 WrestleManias. Early on, we get a crazy collision as Tito goes for the flying forearm and the Mountie just jumps into it. Tito on the outside with a noggin knocker to the Mountie and Jimmy Hart. Then back in the ring, Jimmy handing the Mountie the cattle prod. He zaps Tito in the tum-tum and wins the match. I guess I'll give it a half star out of 5. Again, this is a match designed to get people on the card, but boy, were some people over on their times or what? Because now we're getting down to the nitty gritty and we're just gotta come on, we gotta get 2 moves off and then it's time to wrap it up. Mean Gene in the promo zone with Hulk Hogan, the challenger saying, Sergeant Slaughter set fire to the dreams of all little Hulkamaniacs out there, dude. Hulk says that Slaughter's old warfare, brother, and that the Hulkster is the all-new technology, Jack. Yeah, Hulk Hogan pretty much unchanged from 1984 is the all-new technology. But what about the assault by the champ last week on Superstars, Hulk? The shot with the belt, the flag, the camel clutch making you humble, the taunting with the belt. Are you the same man? No, Mean Gene. After what Slaughter did to me, the Hulk's done a 360. Then he wraps it up by saying, oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light that I'll be the new champion and you'll be a victim of Twilight's last creaming. Let's have our guest host take one final bow in the ring as Alex Trebek is your guest ring announcer, Marla Maples the guest timekeeper, and Regis Philbin joins on commentary for our main event, the WWF Championship, nay, the Soul of America on the line as that evil turncoat Sergeant Slaughter defends against the pride of the country, Hulk Horatio Hogan. Slaughter, of course, the evil Iraqi turncoat. He came back to the WWF after being in the AWA, escaping the remnants of the Team Challenge series. Go watch my video on that for more information. But he shows up in the summer of 1990 as a heel who thinks that America has gone soft, and then by January he's gone full bore into the Iraqi sympathizer character, which does get Slaughter an obscene amount of heat, especially after he becomes the champion 2 days after Desert Storm begins, and yeah, a lot of anti-Slaughter sentiment. I mean, this man legitimately got death threats, and his family got threats as well, and they had to hire security detail to keep him safe. He would wear bulletproof vests. I mean, you know, say what you will about the storyline and whether or not it was exploiting this real life situation in poor taste or whatever, but you know, Slaughter committed to the bit, and you know, he definitely got flack from the fans as a result, kind of the level of which you wouldn't really see much of for decades prior to this. You hear stories about, you know, Freddie Blassie and Roddy Piper and Bobby Heenan and Cornette, they've got like shot at and stabbed at and shit thrown at them and everything. And like, that's kind of the thing of a bygone era. You think about those days. So to hear that happening as far into 1991 with Sergeant Slaughter, you know, granted, it is a very sensitive thing they're covering here, and again, exploiting this, the Iraq War, the Gulf War, whatnot. But yeah, it's a level of vitriol that the fans have over a character that I had not seen or heard of except for those kind of old territory days. I will say, for all the flack that WWF gets for running this storyline, piggybacking off the Gulf War and everything, this is still a far better end result storyline than what apparently was originally pitched. I cannot believe that this is the case, but apparently it has been, you know, it's been verified by people that the original plans for Mania 7 was going to be Hulk Hogan versus his old friend Tugboat, because we saw the seeds being planted the previous year when, you know, Earthquake beat up Hulk Hogan and got him off TV, and Hogan's friend Tugboat was doing the letter writing campaign and all that, and then Tugboat later gets written off, and he doesn't really get to be part of SummerSlam that year as part of the blow-off with Hulk and Quake. And so apparently the rumor was that it was going to be Tugboat turning heel and becoming an Iraqi sympathizer and becoming Sheik Tugboat, evidently. And so then as current events play out the way they do, and they already have Slaughter there on the roster, WWF kind of pivots and say, oh, it makes more sense. It makes more of a compelling story to have this American hero turn his back on America. And yes, like from a dramatic storytelling standpoint, that is absolutely true. I cannot imagine the timeline we would have been in to see Hulk Hogan versus Tugboat as the main event or a main event for a WrestleMania in this or any fucking timeline. Like, I just don't understand they thought they could help sell out the LA Coliseum with Hulk Hogan versus Sheik Tugboat. Thank God Sergeant Slaughter came up and did this, because that is way more compelling and interesting than Sheik Tugboat. I love the promo package they ran for this on TV. It's so funny because the music for Slaughter is all creepy and these really scary sounds. It's all blurry and traces and black and white. And then when Hogan shows up, the music's like, ha ha ha, America, with the vignetting, and Hogan's so valiant and in full color and everything. And it's so fucking cheesy, but I love it. Slaughter, the champion, naturally coming out first so Hogan can get the big rah rah USA intro. Big USA chants for Hogan as the match is getting underway. Hogan starts things off with a shoulder block, Slaughter with a big old bump, General Adnan with the blatant cheap shot. Hogan goes after him. We get a chair shot by Slaughter. Not only does Hogan not sell it, there's also no DQ or anything. So I guess it's Slaughter's rules is no rules. It's not just a thing of, oh, Slaughter wants to get himself disqualified or counted out, or he could do that. Apparently he can't. So it's just rules are out the window. Slaughter with the eye poke. He mounts an offensive, but Hogan fights back. We get more big bumps by Slaughter. Those corner flops were really a specialty. These guys do have the crowd in the palm of their hands. They're vocalizing for everything. Even Slaughter kicking out halfway through the match gets a big reaction. Hogan going up top, which is pretty rare, but Adnan grabs the leg and gives Sarge a chance to give Hogan a beel. The Boston Crab is locked in. Hogan is right there at the ropes, but takes all day to grab them. Slaughter even hitting a top rope stomp to the back, but for whatever reason, Adnan's on the apron, costing him the win. Slaughter dinks Hogan with the chair and busts him open. It's camel clutch time, making him humble. We get some more stomps. He puts it on once again. Is this the end of America? No. Hulkster powers up and the fans are going nuts. Alas, Slaughter with another counter. In comes the Iraqi flag. He lays it on top of Hogan. He goes for the cover. Hogan kicks out. He tears the flag apart, brother. He hymns up, hits the punches, the boot, the leg drop, and the win for the Hulkster. Hogan becoming the first ever three-time WWF champion as the show fades to black. Yay, yay, yay for the USA. I give it 3.5 stars out of 5. It's a really physical matchup, and I think it's one of Hogan's stronger WrestleMania matches. I think the first time I watched it was when I was watching the Hulk Still Rules DVD set, and that was on there, and that was the first time I'd seen it, and I was pretty blown away, because how often do you see Hogan really getting worked over like he was by Slaughter here? I think, again, the give and take for both was pretty good here, and even Slaughter, he's on the twilight of his career, he's still able to produce a really good match with Hogan. Again, a strong physical style they're both kind of attuned to. And, the story, even though it is controversial, it's polarizing, it does clearly draw some people away from the product. The ones who are here for it are really into it. And, they're hanging on by everything they're doing. It's definitely pro-USA, and it is very much like a good patriotic, boost for the country. Again, at a period where they didn't really need it so much because the Gulf War had ended by that point, but it was just kind of a nice little, pin on it, a little bow for the WWF, a nice patriotic boost to kind of send the fans home happy. Obviously, it's a very, predictable way to end the show, but they did it pretty well. My grade for WrestleMania 7, Stars and Stripes Forever, is a B-. Like I said, this show is all over the damn place. For every one awesome match you get in this show, which there are a few of them, you get 2 crap 1 or 2 minute matches that really have no business being on this card, if not just to give some extra guys Mania paydays. Because I think the top matches absolutely deliver. And, even though it's a down time in the business and for the company, I still think that, in the early Mania, the first 10 Mania era, this is still a really strong Mania overall. Again, just scrap 5 matches and that very silly instant replay thing, and you got an all-timer on your hands here. So I think it balances out to this B- grade for me. But what did you think of WrestleMania 7, and how about this review? What were some of your favorite matches and moments from the show? Let me know in the comments section. Be sure to give the video a thumbs up if you like it, subscribe to Wrestling with Regret, and hit that bell icon for all the notifications. Next time here on the Classic Review, we're still going to be at WrestleMania time, but it's big time. I'm talking about WrestleMania 22. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.